Welcome to This Week in Northwest Georgia Football, brought to you by Riverside Auto Group and produced by WLAQ Sports. Each week, we bring you insight, analysis, interviews, and our predictions for the week's matchups around the Northwest Georgia area. Here are your hosts.
Yes, your hosts are here, and we're ready to go with another episode of this edition of This Week in Northwest Georgia Football. And Ian, what week of the show is this?
It's week 9.
It's week 9.
How'd
What's
that
going
happen?
on? It's October the 10th today. Can't believe that we're taping this, and we're glad that you've chosen to spend some time with us as we get ready to talk about this weekend's matchups of high school football.
Yeah, it's going to be a good weekend of action here on Friday night.
Indeed. But before we get into that, let's talk about last week. Something happened.
Can we not?
Okay, I get that.
Yeah.
Well, we do have this at the head of the table now.
Yeah.
It's shining. I actually need to dust it off a little bit and maybe get a little shine and kind of polish it up there.
Yeah.
Look good on the Christmas tree.
Yeah.
But it's not over yet. We still have got
it's
a few weeks left of the regular season, and we also have playoffs. Playoffs can get really interesting.
You guys are close. Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
That is true. So anyway, but I guess the first thing that we'll do is go over last week's results. And something happened for the first time this week for this past week for this season. We had a couple of people in the room go perfect, which we hadn't had happen this year. We've all missed picks every single week until last week. But Grayson, you were 10-0. I was 10-0. And Ian, you were 8-2 last week.
And both my two were leading late in the game, but it went the other way.
Yes, Bremen won over Pepperell. You'd gone with Pepperell, and then Coosa over Almerchi. And as you mentioned, they both went down to the wire.
Yeah.
So that week could have gone either way.
Yeah.
But it didn't.
But it didn't.
So right now I'm in the lead by one game at 59-12. Grayson is 58-13. And Ian, you're bringing up the rear here at 53-18.
Yeah, I got you. All right.
So,
Can we move on? Can we move on?
Is that the scores from last week? Yeah, that's 53-18. That's right. Yeah.
All right. We did the thing. We can move
Let's
on.
savor that for a couple of moments there, Grayson.
Yeah.
You know, it's nice to have that lead, but it could go away. You never know.
That's true.
What could happen?
That's true. Did anybody remember Alabama beat Georgia? Didn't that happen a couple of weeks ago? Oh, you were there.
I think the fans forgot, honestly, to be honest, with the reaction to the Vanderbilt game last week.
Yeah,
It was like totally erased from memory, I believe.
So by rule of transfer, does this mean that Vanderbilt beats Georgia, even though they don't play?
I mean, no.
Hypothetically.
They would have a tiebreaker in that scenario, but that would be it. Yeah.
Well, talk a little bit about last week's games. Of course, one of the ones that we had, the game that we had featured for our game of the week was the Coosa Eagles and the Almerchi Indians, and it certainly lived up to what we expected. Thought it would be a close game. DJ Johnson blocked a punt right there late in the game inside the Almerchi 10-yard line. It set up the go-ahead touchdown for the Eagles, and they ended up winning that game. He also had, DJ Johnson did, according to the newspaper, 12 tackles in the game. So he had a heck of a game.
Yeah, big game for him.
And Coosa came up with a victory in that rivalry game.
Comeback win for Jeff Cannon and his Eagles. Hard-fought game, though. Again, went down to the wire. So lived up to the billing.
Anything else really stand out to you about last week's matchups?
I mean, you had some really good games. Pepperell taking Bremen to the wire once again. The Dragons are in a game and ball didn't bounce their way and weren't able to get a win. And then you've got other teams that are just steamrolling, like Cedartown and Cartersville, headed for what I would be willing to say will be our game of the week next week. Cartersville and Cedartown locking horns.
I haven't looked at the rest of the schedule for next week, but just knowing that one's on the slate, we'd be hard pressed to find a more interesting and compelling matchup than that one right off the top of the bed.
Yes,
that might as well be the region. No doubt, it's the region championship.
Yeah,
whoever wins that.
Super exciting stuff. Well, we've got a lot of games to pick, so I guess what we could do now is just go ahead and start to jump into our list of games. Yeah. And what we're going to do is start with Region 7A D1 here for Week 9 games. So who wants to tee up the first matchup here?
I'll go. Bring it on. It's Gordon Central. The Warriors traveling to Gordon Lee to face the Trojans. The Battle of the Gordons. Could be interesting, right? Gordon Lee's looking pretty darn good, right? So there's no chance the Warriors are going to go on the road and beat the Trojans. But I say they do. I say Gordon Central springs the upset of the season. The Warriors get it done. You hear me, Tony Potts? Your guys you're gonna pull a miracle.
All right. Based on the laughter on the other side of the table, which I know he means no offense there, but I think you see it differently, Grayson. Do you?
Perhaps.
Okay.
There's a chance I do. Gordon Lee, they've been able to go on a really good streak. I think they've really grown a whole lot since that loss versus Heritage earlier in the season. And Heritage, way better than I thought they were. Apparently, they're in a tough region, but I certainly don't expect them to beat Gordon Lee earlier in the season. But now they found their identity, spread the ball around, play some really tough defense, and we saw them defeat Chattooga, which was Chattooga's first loss of the season. And now, Gordon Central, they're a whole lot improved, but you're facing probably one of the two best teams in the region, and I just don't think that they can get it done at Gordon Lee.
I'm going to have to agree with Grayson on this particular pick. My initial impression was that Gordon Lee should be the clear and easy choice. However, they both have losses to Christian Heritage. Gordon Lee lost by more in the matchup than Gordon Central did.
That's right.
Both have similar averages on defense, not as far off as you might think in this game. So it could be, with a deeper look there, a little bit more of a competitive game. But I get the feeling that this Gordon Lee team is going to be able to produce more on offense in this game, particularly with how strong they played in wins over Chattooga and Dade in the last couple of games. So I think they've kind of turned a corner and are a really confident team right now, clicking on all cylinders. So I'm going to take Gordon Lee, but I can see why Ian wanted to take that pick. He's got some ground to cover, and this is one of those ones that I do think could be closer than people think it will be. So I get the thought process there, but I agree with Grayson on the pick. All right. Yeah. All right. So we will go to the next game. It's going to be the Christian Heritage Lions at Chattooga Indians. This one's interesting because this is the first time these two teams have ever met in series history. So those are always fun to talk about. We see that a lot in the playoffs and things like that. But, once you get this far into the regular season, you don't see too many of those on the list.
No, you don't.
But Chattooga got off to a hot start this year, going 5-0. They've hit a tough stretch of opponents at the midpoint of the season, and now things have not gone as smoothly against teams like Gordon Lee, Fannin County, and they face another tough opponent in Christian Heritage. And one of the things that jumps off the page for me about this Christian Heritage team this year is it seemed like last year, every time we talked about Christian Heritage, it was the Carter Triplet show. And it's still the case, but it looks like he's got a little bit more of a supporting cast, more guys to distribute the ball to and help that offense, keep moving forward. So this is a much improved Christian Heritage team. And you're seeing some different names popped up, like I mentioned, in the Georgia High School Football Daily as being solid targets for him. So I think Christian Heritage wins the game, but I do think it'll be a close one. Do you agree, Ian?
I don't.
Oh, my Lord.
Zayden's going to be cooking, boys. This game's at the Little Bighorn. Christian Heritage's 6-game win streak comes to an end. Chattooga.
All right, let's go over to Grayson. How do you see it?
Yeah, Zayden Cooks, he's going to cook. He's the number 2 rusher in the entire nation now. They're going to give the rock to him no matter what. They're just going to pound the rock. He's going to get about 300 yards rushing game, probably a few touchdowns. But Christian Heritage, they spread the ball a little bit more. They have more weapons than I feel like Chattooga does. Even though, they have a lot of weapons, I feel like Chattooga having the number 2 rusher in the nation, it's like having a nuclear bomb at that point. But I'm still going to take Christian Heritage with that one.
Okay. So 2 games, 2 differences.
2 upsets.
There you go.
Horns down.
We're going to move on to the next game. This one's going to be in 7AA. Grayson, you want to tee this one up for us?
Of course. In my opinion, looking at this game, North Cobb Christians, they're undefeated. And both teams are undefeated in the region. So I guess you could say this is basically for the region championship right now, because Rugmart's already got all their region foes out of the way, and North Cobb Christian has already got a lot of the good matchups out of the way. So both teams are rolling. They're both loaded on both sides of the ball, and I think it's going to be a shootout. Saying that, Rockmart does a whole lot better in shootout games than people might think. So some of the wins for North Cobb Christian, we saw them keep it close with Sonoraville. Some of those in Darlington, some of those losses, they just pop out of or some of those wins pop out on the paper, just those close wins. but even I'm just going to take Rockmart. I went on a whole rabbit hole right there.
What did he just say?
I'm not sure what he said. It was going to be a shootout. I agree with who's going to win, but I think it's a low scoring game. Rockmart has not been the explosive team we've gotten accustomed to on offense this season, but they've played really good defense. I mean, you look at the games where they've scored points, it's been against opponents that they should have scored a bunch of points against. This North Cobb Christian team is good on defense. They've got some playmakers at running back. I think this is a low-scoring game, but I like Rockmart to have the better defense and be able to do a little bit more on offense. Yellow Jackets, close.
Yeah, North Cobb Christian beat Murray County 49-6 last week. Teddy Gerard 8-8 of passing, so they don't pass the ball a tremendous amount. Did have 152 yards there, a few touchdowns. When you look at this Rockmart team, it's interesting to watch the progression of their season. A lot of this has to do with their strength of schedule and how it was definitely top-loaded. But their offense continues to get better, score more each week of the season. Conversely, they're getting tougher on defense. It's hard to score on them. They've gotten better. And I think a lot of that has to do with the tough teams that they play at the beginning of the year. So I think this is going to be a pretty close game. But I think eventually the Yellow Jackets are going to loosen up that defense from North Cobb a little bit with some of their athleticism. And I think they're going to pull away. But I do think it'll be close for a while. But by the end of the game, I think that you're going to see Rockmart win it by a couple of scores. We'll see what happens. But I'm taking the Rockmart Yellow Jackets.
We're in agreement.
One more game that we'll pick before we take our next break, and this one is going to be the Northwest Whitfield Bruins going to Calhoun, the Reeve, to take on the number 8 Calhoun Yellow Jackets. Series history-wise, the Bruins lead at 4-2. However, they have not met since 1985. It's been since 1985 since this matchup has been on the list. So another interesting fact there in series history. Today we're starting to see a theme. But Calhoun beat Ridgeland 41-7 last week. They led 35-0 at halftime. Northwest Whitfield is a good team, but it's obvious that their record probably has been aided a little bit by strength of schedule. They've got wins over Cola Creek. North Murray's down this year. Southeast Whitfield has really struggled. Dalton is a team that has really struggled.
Winless Dalton.
That's unexpected for us that don't see them play that much, as good as they've been recently. Gilmer, Lafayette, those are their wins. They lost to a good, not great Heritage Ringgold team, so there's no doubt in my mind that this is the toughest opponent and definitely toughest environment that the Bruins have faced, and I think that's going to show. I think that Calhoun's going to come out strong in this game, and they're going to win by, I see it as multiple scores. Do you guys, do you agree with that assessment?
So last year's comeback kids, the Northwest Whitfield Bruins, who they loved it when they were down 4 scores. They found a way to come back and win some games, pull the rabbits out of their hat a lot. Got a great record this year. And if you were just looking at the records and didn't know much about these two teams, you'd probably think Calhoun's the underdog. Not a chance. Calhoun has 3 losses to 3 really good football teams, and they've got some good wins too. So this is a no-brainer for me. I think Calhoun wins it by 20.
We're going to go over to the other side of the table. Do you also see this as a no-brainer? You think we're going to get a little bit better game than it feels like from what we're saying on this side of the table, Grayson?
I feel like we're going to get a no-brainer. You know, you mentioned it, Northwest Whitfield, they have a great record, and if you were just look at it, you know, you'd think Northwest Whitfield by multiple scores. But once again, we go back and look at tough out-of-region schedules. We've seen Rockmart with tough out-of-region schedules. We've seen Rome with tough out-of-region schedules. We see a lot of teams in Northwest Georgia that are battle tested, and I think this is the difference in these region games, especially now at this part of the year where you're winding down, but you got to keep going. And all of these teams, they've played some really tough opponents, and I just think that Calhoun, what I know of their personnel, and they're ranked about top 10 in every website, so I'm just going to have to go with the Yellow Jackets, especially because they get it at home. So.
Well, it looks like we all see that one exactly the same in every respect. We're going to go ahead and take a break. This is This Week in Northwest Georgia Football, our Week 9 edition of the program. And we're glad you're with us today here for the program. We got more coming up. We're going to pick some more games later on in the show, Ian, what we got coming up towards the end.
Yeah, our game of the week this week is one with some local flair to it. It is going to be Pepperell traveling to Shannon and Woodard Tuggle to take on the model Blue Devils, and we get to speak with both Coach Jeff Hunnicutt and Coach Brandon Haywood. We get their thoughts on a big-time cross-county rivalry.
And we know somebody in the room is super excited about that game because we got a model high school student sitting across from us.
That's right.
So big game coming up. I would ask you what the atmosphere around campus at school has been like this week, but you're all on fall break, so you don't get that aspect of it this time.
Yeah, we're on fall break. A lot of people are out of town, but football has to stay in town. I haven't talked to a lot of football players. I did get to go to Haralson County game last week, and it was a good win for Model, and now we get to go play the biggest rivalry in Rome, Georgia. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that one.
That's awesome, man. Well, more on that coming up a little bit later, as we mentioned. But right now, we'll take a break. We'll be right back.
Shop for your next car, truck, or SUV at Riverside Auto Group. Check out riversideautogroup.com today to browse their selection or visit with them in person at Riverside Chevrolet GMC in Rome, Riverside Toyota in Rome, and the all-new Riverside GMC Cadillac in Cartersville. Locally owned and operated by the Welburn family since 1974. That's Riverside Auto Group. Visit riversideautogroup.com.
Happy Thursday, WLA crew. Thanks for being with us today on this edition of This Week in Northwest Georgia Football, where we dissect and preview the big matchups on Friday nights. We're going to jump right back into action here, and we're going to talk about some big-time matchups and really setting the stage for what I think will be one of the biggest games of the year next week, which we'll talk a lot more about next week. But Cedartown Bulldogs are traveling to Dalton to take on the Catamounts, and I'll go ahead and give my thoughts here. Last season, it looked like Dalton, after kind of a down year, was back. You know, they were competing and got one of the playoff spots last year. I thought the Catamounts were on the right track. They had some transfers. Their starting quarterback is where did he ended up at Ayersville. So they lost some guys. I'm not sure what's going on in Dalton, but 0-7 is a head scratcher. That's like seeing the Pepperell Dragons with 0 wins next to their name. It's just kind of shocking because this is a proud program. And this week they get a Cedartown Bulldogs team that's coming off of a thumping of a good Hiram Hornets team at Hiram. So the road does not intimidate Jamie Abrams' boys. And they don't need to get caught looking ahead to Cartersville. They won't. They're going to take care of business. They win big.
All right, we'll go ahead and shift over to the other side of the table. Mr. Grayson Atkins with us, WLAQ and V3 intern. How do you see this one?
I mean, if this was last year, I would think about this matchup a little bit. But this year, absolutely not. Cedartown's going to go up to Dalton and beat some kiddies up.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add to this one. Not a whole lot of reason to spend a tremendous amount of time on it. Obviously, Cedartown comes into the game, as you mentioned, beating Hiram pretty soundly. Rushed for about 400 yards in the game. They only passed the ball 7 times. They don't have to because they impose their will on everybody that they play, and it's impressive to hear about. So I think Cedartown has absolutely no trouble here. They'll come up with a big win, and that's all I have to say about that. So there you have it. All right, next one on the list is another game in 7-4A. It's the number 2 Cartersville Purple Hurricanes going to Allatoona to play the Buccaneers. Cartersville comes in 7-0, 3-0 in region play. Allatoona's 4-3, 2-1 in region play. The Canes lead the series 6-2, and they've won the last 6 games in the series. Connor Foster has been head coach for half of those wins. The Canes beat Cass 38-7. I hate that game lost a lot of its luster because of the injury at quarterback for Cass, because I know that was one of the things that fans of high school football around the state really had circled before the beginning of the year started. Didn't pan out that way. But Ian, this Cartersville team is just really rolling right now.
Yeah. Getting past Cass, they still have Hiram on the schedule, and Cedartown, of course. next week. So there's still some big matchups for Cartersville, and they don't need to get caught looking past this Allatoona team, but I don't think there's a lot to dissect X's and O's wise here. I don't think Allatoona's a bad football team. I just don't think they're on the same planet as Cartersville.
So you're going Cartersville, I'm going Cartersville. What say you, Grayson?
Cartersville's they're rolling too hard to stop now. I think they go on the road, demolish Allatoona, so give me Cartersville.
All right. We'll pick one more before we take our next break, maybe two. We'll see. I've got to look ahead at the schedule, but the next game is going to be in 5A. We're going to talk about the Lithia Springs Lions, 1-6, 0-4 in region play, playing the number 10 Rome Wolves, who picked up some steam in the last few weeks of region play. They're 3-2, have won 3 in a row, all region games. Rome leads the series 2-0. This is the first matchup, though, in a while. They hadn't played since 2013. Ian, you went to Rome.
I did.
You follow this program close. Tell us what you think about it.
Proud graduate back in 1998, many moons ago. But yes, the Rome Wolves have gotten back to their winning ways. I think last week was really good for John Reed's bunch to go on the road and get a little test from Villa. I think that's a good Villa Rica team, but Rome's defense is clicking. Lithia Springs is struggling to score points. That's not a good recipe when you're headed to Barron Stadium. So I think the Wolves will continue their winning ways, and it looks like they're rolling towards yet another region championship.
All right. How do you see it, Grayson?
Same as Ian. Rome go win.
It's that simple, huh?
That's simple.
I'm with you on that. I won't add too much to that. The Lions are giving up 41 points a game. This Rome team's building up steam. I think there's going to be a lot of offense there for the Rome Wolves in this game. They'll be able to name the score. I think it's that type of a matchup. So I'm going with the Rome Wolves as well. We all agree on that one. All right, let's see. We've got 6A D1 to look at, and that's actually the last region that we're going to be talking about today. So let's take a break, and we'll come back in a couple of moments, and we'll keep this thing rolling. It's This Week in Northwest Georgia Football. We're glad that you're here with us for our Week 9 predictions and analysis, and we'll be right back for more after these messages.
Shop for your next car, truck, or SUV at Riverside Auto Group. Check out riversideautogroup.com today to browse their selection or visit with them in person at Riverside Chevrolet GMC in Rome, Riverside Toyota in Rome, and the all-new Riverside GMC Cadillac in Cartersville. Locally owned and operated by the Welburn family since 1974. That's Riverside Auto Group. Visit riversideautogroup.com.
Welcome back, everybody, to this edition of This Week in Northwest Georgia Football. It's time to talk about some really tough county roads that have to be traveled. And that matchup involves the Rebels that take it to another level from Haralson County. And
do you know what he's referencing there?
US 27. Yeah, yes, I know.
You got to hear
you
the
went to
song
Haralson
a bunch
County.
of
You were there
times
last week, right?
Yeah.
You heard the
theme
song? Rebels take it to another level. It's tough out in this county. Oh,
hear
come
that.
on! Oh my goodness, man! How'd you miss that?
Wait,
Grayson was too busy watching the young ladies at the game, and he didn't hear the
No, I was not.
Yeah. So you missed the theme song.
I may have heard it, but I don't remember it.
You probably, well, never mind.
I was probably in a conversation at that point. I didn't.
Are you a country music fan?
Somewhat.
I was about to say, if he's not a country music fan, he may have tried to kind of tune it out a little bit.
I mean, so now that's even less of an excuse because I definitely wanted to tune it out, but it was well produced. Let me say that. It's cool that they got it done, but it is. I mean, it sounds like a Nashville produced piece, but it is a theme song for the Haralson County Rebels, and according to it, they take it to another level.
Simple, direct language that gets right to the heart of the matter.
It does.
I respect that.
Yeah. They take it to another level, and the county roads out there are tough, Grayson. That's what matters, and they're going to have to travel those county roads to get to Temple to take on a Tigers team that is red hot. So right now, you'd have to think Temple, Heard County, Darlington, I mean, we got a lot of things that are going to shake out these next few weeks as far as the way this region's going to play out. This is a big game. Haralson County's a plucky team with some talent, but they struggle to score points, and Temple scores a bunch of them, and it's at Temple. I'm going Tigers.
I'm going to agree with you on this one. You have seen Haralson County manage to keep games low scoring with their defense, and then also their ability to run the football. Paxton Ray is a solid running quarterback. He throws a pretty decent ball. Got a solid running game behind a good-sized line. Bodie Ostrowski is a good player toting the mail for them. But I'm with you on this one, Ian. I think the explosive athleticism that you get from Temple is just going to be a different animal than they've seen so far, and just superior speed and the athletic ability, a team that's averaging 33 points a game. So I expect some offensive explosions, as you call it, in this game from the Temple Tigers, and think they will take it pretty handedly. But we're going to go over and see if there's consensus in the room. Grayson.
There is, in fact, a consensus in the room.
All right.
Well, the thing that caught my eye about Temple was I looked at the stats whenever they played Pepperell, and they did 45 carries for 377 yards. So in that game, they averaged just under a first down every single carry. So they are one of the more explosive teams in Northwest Georgia, and I think we're going to see a lot of that explosiveness versus Haralson. So I think since they're dominating the region right now, they're red hot. I don't think they slow down just yet. I will take Temple in this matchup.
And just a series history note, they're tied at 5 games apiece.
Okay.
So we're all
well,
predicting
I mean,
Temple
we've seen
takes the lead
a
series.
slow rise from Temple over the last few years. Temple was a team that, if we were picking this 5 years ago, it'd be a coin toss, I think. But that Tiger program has slowly gotten better and better, and now a front runner for the region.
Very much so. And another big matchup that we're going to talk about, but since we broadcast the game on WLAQ, we recuse ourselves, won't pick this one, but there's a lot to unpack with this one. We'll spend a few minutes on it. We're going to talk about the Heard County Braves at 4-2, 2-0 in region play. Same record for the Darlington Tigers hosting this game, 4-2, have won 4 games in a row, 2-0 in region play. And obviously everybody around town, whether you were there or not, has already, certainly heard about Darlington's come from behind victory down 20-7 with 2 minutes and 52 seconds to go against the Pepperell Dragons a couple of weeks ago, which is one for the ages, a game you'll never forget if you were there.
Yeah, the stunner by the leg side, man, something else.
It really was. And if you want to hear, a recap of that game in detail from the coach's mouth, you can. If you go back and review the Coach Grove show that we did last night, he gave us a very in detail description of everything that went on behind those last few minutes of the game in particular, which I enjoyed thoroughly last night.
Yeah, absolutely, especially when there was a lot of discussion amongst the officials at the end and some confusion across the stadium as to why things unfolded the way they did. Coach Groves not only breaks down all the play that led up to that moment, but how the officials came to the right decision in the end, which was very important.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you want to catch that, you can go. We don't have time to recap all of that here on the show today. However, I do want to get your guys' take on this particular game. We'll start with you, Ian. I know you've seen every game from Darlington this year except for the very first one, so you've seen them a ton and know all the ins and the outs of this Darlington team. Haven't seen Heard County yet, but I've heard a lot of great things about what they bring to the table.
No, and we've talked about a lot of teams around our region playing a tough non-region schedule. So the record, you look at it, you see a couple of losses. You're like, I've been beaten a few times. Well, yeah, Heard's been beaten, but they were beaten by really good competition, and they have handled everyone else on their schedule. This is an explosive Braves team. We heard Coach Groves last night say this is the best team we'll have seen this year. That's saying a lot. They've played some good competition up to this point. But I agree with him. I think the Braves are going to, prove to be a great challenge for the Tigers. They're big up front. They've got a good quarterback. They've got great playmakers out on the edge. They can spread the ball around, score points, and move the ball in a lot of different ways. So if the Tigers are going to knock this team off and jump into the front seat for this region, they can't turn the ball over. The turnovers are. It's been something that they have overcome, and we have learned. If we've learned one thing about this Darlington team, whatever happens, the next play that's in the rear view. They're going to focus. So even if they do turn the ball over, they're going to fight till the very end. That is just in their DNA. This Dirty 30 group is not going to quit. But against a team like Heard County, those turnovers, I think, will be too much for them to overcome. So they've got to focus on ball security. I know Coach Groves is preaching these things. He said they've had a great week of practice. The other half of this, and he spoke to it too, running that option, if they can control the clock and limit Hurd's possessions, that is another key thing to watch in this game. If Darlington doesn't turn the ball over and is moving the ball on offense and controlling the clock, they've got a chance to win this thing.
And another aspect of that too, Ian, to kind of piggyback on the things that you're talking about, is you talk about how this team never quits. They also never panic either. Oh. And they're able to get creative and sort of improvise in certain situations as those situations kind of dictate. And so even though, they run a lot of the same base plays and things of that nature, you can always expect that there will be some wrinkles along the way, and you just never know when those are going to turn up. And so, they'll definitely have a good game plan. They've got a great coaching staff at Darlington. But as you mentioned, this could be the toughest match of it. There's a lot of things that indicate that they've faced this year. But I think they're playing their best football. And like you say, if they can clean up those turnovers, it'll be interesting to see what that does to the outcomes of the games. And they've won 4 in a row. So they've got a lot of momentum. We'll see what happens. Looking forward to it. Grayson, anything that you'd like to add about this matchup, man?
I mean, I got to witness, what was that, almost 2 weeks ago, 2 generational games, 2 nights in a row.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you did.
I did, in fact, get to witness those. And if Darlington's going to be able to win this ball game, and I'm going to mention this, they're going to have to control the clock like Vanderbilt did against Alabama. I mean, Vanderbilt controlled the ball for about 40 minutes compared to Alabama holding the ball for 17 minutes. So they're really going to have to run the ball. And they're going to have to run that spread option, those speed options that we see all the time from them pitching out to Jace Donaldson. They're really going to have to control the clock and maybe a little bit of passing here and there just to get Heard County on its heels, just keep them at bay. But it's going to be a great matchup there for Darlington. And They get to play a really explosive team from Heard County.
Looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun, and that'll be at Chris Hunter Stadium Friday night, 7:30. Be there. All right. We got one more game that we're going to talk about and pick at the end of the show. It comes down to this, man.
Yes, it does. We're going to let the guys who know these teams best tell us about these matchups. We had the privilege to speak with Coach Jeff Hunnicutt from Model, head coach of the Model Blue Devils, and then that'll be followed up with our conversation with Pepperell head coach Brandon Haywood. So enjoy these conversations, and we'll be back to make our picks after that.
Shop for your next car, truck, or SUV at Riverside Auto Group. Check out riversideautogroup.com today to browse their selection or visit with them in person at Riverside Chevrolet GMC in Rome, Riverside Toyota in Rome, and the all-new Riverside GMC Cadillac in Cartersville. Locally owned and operated by the Welburn family since 1974. That's Riverside Auto Group. Visit riversideautogroup.com.
Welcome back into this episode of This Week in Northwest Georgia Football. It is now time for our Game of the Week segment. We're really excited to talk about this matchup with each of the head coaches for the respective teams involved. And we're going to start here with the head coach of the Model Blue Devils and Jeff Hunnicutt. How are you doing today, Coach?
Good morning, you guys. Doing great.
Well, thank you so much for your time. We're looking forward to chatting with you. Of course, you guys are 3-3 overall, 1-1 in region play coming into the game. Last week, you went down to Haralson County, were able to come out of there with a close win. So, in what ways, Coach, do you feel like your team has grown as the season has gone on?
Well, we've had a couple of linemen banged up, and to see those guys progress the way we did in our, basically we've already had our 2 off weeks, and we've gotten a lot better in the line of scrimmage and a lot more depth. We felt like the score should have been a little bit worse. We got inside the red zone, I want to say 4 or 5 times, and, came away with no points. We threw an interception right before half. So, just some little things like that. Defensively, I thought we played pretty good. We still missed some tackles, and we gave up a couple explosions. So we got to eliminate those kind of mistakes.
Excellent, Coach. Well, I want to talk about your guys for a minute. Who have been some of the guys that have really stepped up for this team this year? You mentioned you have some injuries. Who stepped in and performed well, and who have been your leaders that have risen to the top?
Well, we're still a young team, and I'm not going to use that. We talked about that way back when the season started. And these guys aren't young anymore, but we're still a sophomore-led team. Jared Cherokee has came on and played some quarterback for us, and of course got banged up at Haralson County, and then asked Patch to step right in, and Patch was the starter at the first of the year, so he has some game experience, and he'll probably be the starter against Pepperell Friday. So I'm looking forward to that. AJ Adams, another guy, is banged up, but he provides a lot. He's a kind of a fire plug on defense, and as soon as he got in, some things slowed down from there on the counter scheme that they were trying to run against us. And, the line of scrimmage, Ethan Goggins does a good job as far as being a leader. Cooper Henderson is a junior, but, again, has provided a lot of depth for us on offense and defensive line. These guys, you're not calling their names out a lot on Friday night, especially these offensive linemen. And I truly believe that, we're going to win and lose games on the line of scrimmage. Maddox Wilbank's he's the senior captain for us and probably the smallest lineman on the field. Going against guys twice his size. And, unsung hero probably last week was Gage McCorder. Doesn't say anything, never says anything, and probably had his career night. I think he rushed for 160 or so yards. And we had some success with the counter play and, played pretty good on defense. And, if we can do those things, control line of scrimmage and control the game, it puts us in position to be able to win more games.
We got Jeff Hunnicutt with us, the head coach of the Model Blue Devils. And, Coach, Pepperell, they do a lot of things very well, and they've got a lot of talented players. There's no question that this team and their 0-7 record does not reflect how this team competes. So, from your perspective, Coach, I know you've seen it on film, know this team very well.
Yes.
What stands out to you about this team and the challenges that they will present on a Friday night?
Well, I think that the kids are still fighting, and I think that's a credit to Coach and his staff. It's just that's hard to do. In extreme situations, you're not be able to. Again, this is probably one of the top winless teams in the state of Georgia. They're a very dangerous group on offense. Defensively. They do some things, and they've moved a lot more, heavier fronts. But it's typical. I've been there and done that. I grew up in that community. There's a lot of hard-nosed kids still there, and I think they're playing for the right purpose. But and they'll be fired up again when they come into our stadium this Friday, and I fully expect them to be. We just got to control our own emotions as well as part of this game. That's something we haven't done. Last couple of weeks, we've committed stupid penalties, opening our mouth and not playing the game which is meant to be played. That's what we're trying to get out of our kids this week, and in even our off weeks, going back to our off weeks, is something we really preach and how we go about our practice and what the correct response should be.
Well, Coach, you mentioned these hard-nosed Lindale kids that are on your opposition's roster this week. Who are some of the Dragons that stand out to you when you look at them on tape?
I think everybody's going to notice, the Wooten kid. I mean, he's a big physical specimen who moves extremely well. Ross, another kid that, I coach both of his brothers, so I know a lot about his family, and I know that, he's a hard-nosed kid. He gets to touch the ball every time, which, that may change. Who knows? The Matt Garcia, another kid, comes to mind. They're just a lot. 79, I don't know his name. He's a big kid who plays both ways. They're very similar to us from the aspect they got a lot of kids playing both ways. And, this is single A or whatever we want to call it, double A Division II or whatever football. But we're going to ask a lot of kids to line up, play special teams, line up, play defense, line up, play offense, and that's just the way it is. And there's a lot of similarities there. Coach Haywood, again, I've known him for a long time. I coached against him as a player when he came through Rockmart, and of course I've coached against him the last 2 or 3 years he was at Woodland. But again, his guys are going to be ready to play, and it's a crosstown game. It's fall break. People are going to be coming back into town, I'm sure, Friday. But it's been kind of like real quiet school of late. I mean, nobody's on campus except for the football guys, and of course your other fall sports. And that's it. So it kind of reminds you of the old days of college where you report to duty and nobody's there except for the fall sports getting ready to play. And that's kind of what it has been this week. But our focus has been really good. Our practices we've had some lulls, but for the most part our practices have been pretty good this morning in the mornings, and we've had a great job with attendance again. So we're just looking forward to it. It's our next game, and I think that's what we're trying to do in our process as coaches. Make sure we understand the importance of the next game, because we're not promised tomorrow. God willing, we're going to get up and be able to do these things we're doing, but we're not promised tomorrow. But we have one game on our schedule this Friday, and I hope that our kids respond.
Well, Coach, we're looking back at the record books as we prepare for these interviews, and it just kind of stunned me that this is the 6th time that you've coached against the Pepperell Dragons. So in regard to your history with that program, how has managing the emotion of coaching against the Pepperell Dragons changed for you since that first meeting?
I think everybody knows that I'm always going to bleed gold and white. That's there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that I moved here when I was 4.5, 5 years old, and I've grown up with Little Joe and Joe Knight and all the coaches' sons back then. So there's always a little bit of emotion, but we've got a lot of guys here that also played there as well, and so it's a big game, but it's the next game on our schedule, and that's why we try to push that importance. I feel like when Coach Hurst was there, it was always probably a less than a touchdown game. It was always competitive. We're going to get a call here, we're not going to get a call here, and then where's the character of our team? Are we going to sit there and point our finger as something that happened, or are we going to move on and try to win the next play? Last year we got off on a good start and kind of shut them down defensively, and we were able to find success, and that's probably the largest win in the game, I guess, against Pepperell that I probably had. I think it was like 23-9 or something like that. But I feel like Coach Hurst had our number for a while. He would get a 2 or 3 point win, or even a 1 point win, but it was just a good hard fought battle. The kids know each other. The kids go to the College Career Academy together, so there's a lot of familiarity with all of our kids in this county, being able to go see each other face to face. So we've got to control our emotions, as kids, and we've got to get the proper preparation, which I think we've had this week. And Friday is about showing that preparation and letting us become the biggest fans, on that sideline. And I'm expecting a good crowd and a great environment as we host Pepperell. It means something, but it's also the next game on our schedule.
Well, Coach, as we wind this conversation down, we want to talk a little bit more about that home environment. We know this is going to be a game full of passion and energy, being cross-county rivals, and you touched on this just a little bit. But what does it mean to have this one at home, be in front of those Blue Devil fans, and what are the keys to the game? And you've touched on it a little bit, but what do your Blue Devils have to do to go out and get the win Friday night?
Well, I think we have to control the line of scrimmage. Whatever front they give us from a offensive perspective, is as far as our offensive linemen go, we have to be able to communicate and control what we can control. And if we don't do that, we're going to be in it for a long night. Patch is probably going to be our starter. A little less mobility than Terhune had, but again, he's probably a more efficient passer in terms of he's going to make some of the better reads because he's been doing it a little bit longer. Defensively, we've got to control our explosions. We cannot let them have those big explosions that they've had. I think, again, Coach Haywood has always done a good job of that as far as lulling a defense to sleep and then hitting a big home run shot. And, that can't happen. We got to force them to line down and play another snap. And I think if we can do that for 4 quarters, then, whoever wins, I'll be able to hold our heads high. But, it's going to be a good hard-nosed game I'm hoping for. They're hard-nosed, we're hard-nosed, and I'm hoping we're going to get after it for 4 quarters.
Excellent. Well, Coach, we really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today, and best of luck on Friday night against Pepperell.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate what y'all do.
That's going to put a wrap on our conversation with Coach Hunnicutt. This is This Week in Northwest Georgia Football. We'll be back in just moments.
Shop for your next car, truck, or SUV at Riverside Auto Group. Check out riversideautogroup.com today to browse their selection or visit with them in person at Riverside Chevrolet GMC in Rome, Riverside Toyota in Rome, and the all-new Riverside GMC Cadillac in Cartersville. Locally owned and operated by the Welburn family since 1974. That's Riverside Auto Group. Visit riversideautogroup.com.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to This Week in Northwest Georgia Football. We have on the line with us the head football coach for the Pepperell Dragons, Brandon Haywood. How are you this morning, Coach?
I'm doing well. Off fall break, early morning practice. A pretty good week, so overall, doing pretty good. How about y'all?
Excellent, man. We're doing great. Excited to talk about this matchup on Friday night with you, and we'll jump right into the questions. You had another game last week that went down to the wire against a really talented Bremen team. One thing that everybody has noticed watching your team, the effort and resolve of your team in the face of adversity has been impressive. You guys keep grinding. Talk about the character and attitude of these young men on your team.
It's really good to see. Kids, I hate it more than anybody. I'm probably more disappointed on Friday nights than anybody else on that team, in that program, in that community. Just because I see the fight, the determination, the grit that our kids have, and it just continually comes down to a couple of different things, and it's just things that we're trying to continually work through. And a lot of it, it's year one problems. And our kids, they're battle tested. They continue to try to figure it out. And I think when we do figure it out, we'll give out way better product than we have been in the result of finishing games. But I can't take anything away from this football team. Just not off to the start that any of us anticipated. And, being on fall break, we got 92% of your football team there, and everybody, about 100% of your varsity players are accounted for. So just and that's a testament to a kid, a testament to a parent, and pushing that kid to be at practice, especially early morning practice on fall break, in a season that none of us anticipated. And it's just good to see the resolve that they have, the fight, the determination, and the love that they have for this game to continue to show up week in, week out, and give everything that they have.
Coach, one of the talking points going into the season with reclassification was just how tough the region that you play in was going to be, and obviously that's proven to be just as tough as advertised. So with 3 games to go, what are your impressions of the programs in the region and the talent that you've seen so far and will see moving forward?
It's so much talent in this region. Can't take away from anybody. Everybody that we line down with on a Friday, man, I think not just us, not that who we line down with, everybody that lines down against each other. Like, I think a game can go either way from Friday to Friday. It's no matter who you're playing, it's going to be battle tested. It's going to be a well-coached program. And, it's going to be a lot of gritty kids, no matter what team it is. And, that's what you want. You want the competition. You want to fight to the last play. You want a very competitive environment. And I think we've gotten that every week. Snow by snow, run over games in this region. Everybody is coming out. Everybody's, fully equipped in preparation to win a football game. And that has not disappointed all season long. What has disappointed is, like what I try to tell everybody, man, it's 4 stages to winning. The way that you want your program to win. In year 1, a lot of teams, they lose big. And in year 2, they lose small. And in year 3, they win small. And in year 4, they win big. That's what I continue to try to wrap my head around, try to wrap our staff's head around. And we skipped phase 1 of losing big, other than Cedartown. We hadn't really got blown out by anybody. Already went to phase 2 of losing small, but it's just still something from a mental standpoint that you want to get over as a coach, that you want your kids to get over. to finally get that W in the win column so you can try to get things rolling in the right direction.
Well, Coach, that's a perfect segue into this next question. You guys have been in a ton of close ball games, and the difference in those games comes down to a handful of plays. From a coach's perspective, how do you and your staff use those situations to better your team going forward?
We got to just, we got to address the elephant in the room. We got to watch it. We got to evaluate ourselves as coaches. Are we putting our kids in the best possible situation to be successful? If we are not, we need to be doing it in our meetings, whether it's pre-game or just film sessions with our kids, or we bringing everything to the table to make sure that we're utilizing every resource to be successful for them. We got to watch it with our kids. We got to let them know and understand that, a lot of times we're making the same mistakes, and that's what's discouraging. That's what's frustrating. It's just, a turnover in a crucial situation. And I think that's what it is. A lot of these things, whether it's a turnover, whether it's the opposition scoring a touchdown, or not great special teams play, whatever the case may be, I think we're hurting ourselves in crucial situations. It's always like the worst time that it can happen. But we got to see it. We got to see it. We got to watch it. We got to talk about it. Most importantly, we got to coach through it and make sure our kids understand what we're trying to say, how we're trying to coach. You got kids experted in all different type of ways, so you got to make sure that you present it in a way that they understand exactly what you mean so they can correct those mistakes. But again, it's, I think it's the mental aspect of just getting over adversity. We continue to face it, and we continue to fight it. Now I think we got to make a decision to overcome it.
We got, of course, Coach Brandon Haywood, head coach of the Pepperell Dragons, with us. And Coach, this week you have another cross-county rival on the schedule going out to Model Woodard Tuggle Stadium. So what steps are you taking to prepare your team this week? Is there anything you do differently when it's a rivalry-type matchup like this and there's familiarity, among the players and things of that nature? Anything different about this?
Not really. Not this week. I mean, I know the implications. I know how big it is. I know it's in county. How really, our kids do know each other. Our kids live 10 minutes away from each other. I understand that. I understand relationships and the trash talk between one another through text messages and social media. I get it, but it's kind of hard even walking into the schedule. It was already said. It was already made. I kind of struggle with all great games. And no matter where I've been, it's kind of hard to get your kids focused and, mentally consistent throughout the week when everything, all the routine is off. No school, you got more time to yourself. And it's really important on how you spend that time. It's really important on the nutrition that you put in your body and how you stay replenished and hydrated and all that stuff. And we're not over there to really talk to them about that. And that's, it hurts us sometimes. But I think just talking to them, talking to our kids, just, continue to address how important this game is. I know Model's going to be well coached. Me and Coach Hunnicutt have played each other the last 2 years. 2 years ago, they beat us in overtime. When I was at Woodland last year, they beat us the last play of the game. So it's just making sure that we're, fundamentally sound, mentally prepared, physically rested. Just treat the game how every game is supposed to be played, full intent, full detail, and good execution.
Well, Coach, let's dive a little bit further into your opponent. What players for the Blue Devils stand out to you, and what challenges does this team present from an X's and O's standpoint?
They got to have a really, really good, running back. I think they have a pretty good quarterback. I think he does things just like he's supposed to. I think he is a game manager type kid. He's going to read it effectively, whether it's run or pass. He doesn't put his team in situations to where they truly have to overcome them based on his play or anything like that. He's going to take care of the ball. He's going to do what he's told. His offensive line, they're going to block until the whistle's blown. They're going to try to find extra work. Defense, I'm always highly impressed with how Coach how Coach Hunnicutt coaches his defense. He's very simplistic in his approach. It's not a lot of manipulation that he tries to do. He just tries to put his kids in the best situation. Tries to line them up in accordance to what personnel we give them, and just kind of try to play their keys and try to make tackles in open field. Like, it's nothing, really difficult about what they do. They just kind of line down offensively and defensively, and they're very fundamentally sound and well coached, and they're going to be in the right spots. All they have to do is make plays when, plays come to them. But defensively, another sporty group, another group that, plays extremely hard throughout the whistle. Extremely well tacklers. It's just like I say, you can't say it enough. It's just a well-coached group that's extremely young. You can tell that they're extremely young. And watching them in person and watching them on film. But it's a very confident group that's going to play for 4 quarters.
Last question, Coach. We're just going to ask you the keys to the game. What do the Dragons have to do to be successful in a tough environment coming up this Friday night?
I think we got to stress the importance of not beating ourselves. We got to take care of the football. We got to capitalize on their mistakes, and we got to win the special teams game, special teams phase of the game. I think those 3 keys are pivotal in creating success and hopefully getting a win in the result column. Just making sure that we handle those 3 things. I think we could come out successful if we do just that.
Well, Coach, we appreciate your time. Always a great opportunity to catch up with you and talk some Pepperell football, and best of luck to you coming up this weekend. We appreciate you, man.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate y'all.
All right, that's going to put a wrap on our conversation with Coach Haywood of the Pepperell Dragons ahead of their matchup out at Woodard-Tuggle Stadium against the Model Blue Devils on Friday night. This is This Week in Northwest Georgia Football. We appreciate you tuning in. We'll take a break and come back and wrap things up after these messages.
Shop for your next car, truck, or SUV at Riverside Auto Group. Check out riversideautogroup.com today to browse their selection or visit with them in person at Riverside Chevrolet GMC in Rome, Riverside Toyota in Rome, and the all-new Riverside GMC Cadillac in Cartersville. Locally owned and operated by the Welburn family since 1974. That's Riverside Auto Group. Visit riversideautogroup.com.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back for our game of the week. The WLAQ. We are going to pick this game, the Pepperell Dragons at the Model Blue Devils. And for me, I am a Model High School student. So I'm going to be completely honest with you. Yes, Pepperell's 0-7. Yes. I mean, they can't. It seems to be that we look at some of their losses down to the wire. The thing for me in this game, if they can control the ball, if they can be able to get out to a lead early, and if they can be able to hold it, they'll be able to pull off the win against Model. But I'm a homer, so, I feel like I shouldn't really have to explain what I feel and the personnel on Model. So I'm going to have to go with the Model Blue Devils at Woodard-Tuggle Stadium.
All right, Ian, do you agree with the intern?
Well, I tell you what, look, it may be fall break, but the fans and players are going to be off for this ball game. The environment should be electric. I expect the Dragons to travel well, but the home crowd gives Model an advantage. Model has experienced what it's like to close a game. They've won. They've got that taste. They know how to finish a game. Their defense is scrappy. I think this is going to be a low-scoring ball game, but I don't agree with the resident Blue Devil. Man. Pepperell gets their first win.
We need to get you a headgear pick. We get the two. All right, if anybody from Minnesota is watching this, we need a mascot. I'm just kidding. We get the mascot's head, just pull it out for the game of the week,
Pepperell,
and put it on the head.
All right.
What about you, Matt?
So Pepperell leads 37-21-3. Since 1988, Models won twice, including last season. I think Model's defense is going to keep them in this game.
Yeah.
Obviously, Pepperell's got some playmakers. They've got some size. I feel like they'll score some points in the game. Model's had a change at quarterback because of an injury. Those kind of things can factor in. Gage McWhorter had 160 yards on 19 carries last week. I think the Model's going to have to establish the running game in this game somehow, and that may be tough to do. We'll see what happens here. I can see this game going either way, so I'm gonna pick Model because they're playing this one at home, and we'll see what happens. But I can definitely see Pepperell getting their first win of the season this week. We'll see, but I'm gonna take Model.
All right.
Yep.
3 differences. I need them all to go my way. I'm right back in this thing.
There you go. Well, that is going to wrap up this edition of This Week in Northwest Georgia Football, our Week 9 edition. We'll hope you tune in next week. Same time, same station, WLAQ YouTube, and also Facebook Live at 2 o'clock on Thursdays. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you. It's been fun talking football with you today.
Thank you.
For Grayson Atkins and Ian Griffin, I'm Matt Davis saying, hope you have a great weekend. Enjoy your high school football weekend, everybody. And we'll talk to you next week on This Week in Northwest Georgia Football. Bye.
This has been another edition of This Week in Northwest Georgia Football, brought to you by Riverside Auto Group and produced by WLAQ Sports. We appreciate you tuning in and invite you to tune in again next week. Please like, share, and subscribe.